This is now the third video in the series where I slowly introduce LuckGrib, trying to give you small bite-sized pieces of the app to make learning a little bit easier, hopefully. In the first video, I went through some of the basics of downloading weather files. In the second video, I went through some of the ideas and basics behind viewing the weather files. And in this one, I want to give a few hints on some of the tips and hints on how to make the app a little bit easier to use. So in the first two videos, we use this sidebar area, which you can access through the top left-hand icon. And the sidebar is where you'll find a lot of the settings, or all the settings for the application, as well as a bunch of other features. For example, the weather files are stored here. And rather than tapping on this icon, like going to the top left-hand corner and tapping that icon, it's much simpler to swipe in from the left-hand side of the screen. If you hold down your finger and swipe in from the left, just as you can with all kinds of different iOS and iPhone apps, you can open up the sidebar. That's a much easier way to open up a sidebar because the swipe is, it's easier to perform. So rather than hitting that icon, you can just swipe in from the left-hand side. Also, as you navigate through the different screens available in the sidebar area, you can swipe to go back. A simpler way of doing that, or a more obvious way of doing that, is to hit the button in the top. So there's a library button, which goes back a screen, but also you just swipe back and you'll go back there as well. So yeah, the swiping from to open up a sidebar is a much easier way of getting to that functionality. Should also note that there's a dismiss button at the bottom, which you can use. You can tap that to have the sidebar go away, but also if you just tap on the screen, the sidebar goes away. So that's pretty simple. The other thing to look at is there's the central cursor, the central crosshair is an important user interface element for the application. If you tap on that crosshair, you bring up this menu, and this gives you 6 different options, which are pretty easily accessed. So if you want to animate this weather file over time, you can hit that bottom icon, hit it again to stop animation. You can go back a forecast interval, or go forward a forecast interval. So as you can see, it's possible to do this, but it's a little bit tedious. There's different ways of using it. So if you just tap that center icon and wait, the menu will appear and you can tap the item you want to use. You can do it quicker if you tap down and move immediately. So I tap down in the center and move down to select the button, because I know once you are familiar with this menu, you know where the buttons are. So you can tap down and move quickly to get that functionality. Tap, move, tap, move. And if you do that quickly, it can become a flick gesture. So you can actually just do it so quickly that the menu barely appears. So if you're just hitting the central crosshair and moving quickly, and which is a way of easily stepping around those menu items. Animation on, animation off, animation on, animation off. So you get that now. Okay. The other thing, which if you've seen videos for the Mac, it's obvious that on a Mac you have a cursor, which you can move around, and that allows you to see the text at any point very easily. By moving the cursor on the iPad, the information is shown below the central crosshair. And if you want to quickly see what the weather is doing somewhere else without having to scroll a map for whatever reason, if you tap on the map and hold down, after a slight delay, the crosshair will jump to where you are, and you can move it around to view the information at different points. When you release your finger, the crosshair goes back to the middle. So you can't put it behind some element and then leave it there. It goes back to the center all the time. So that can be useful as well. The other thing to note is that, well, in the first video, I downloaded the original file, weather file for this area, the Caribbean. And it's often useful, so by default, the application keeps 3 versions of these weather files. Well, actually, I'll change my mind a little bit. Let's go to settings. So let's open up the sidebar, go back to the library, and there's a settings area. So in the settings area, you're able to, well, choose different settings for the application, including the time zone, which is shown. You can choose your units. So you may want to show the speed as knots, or if you're a land-based user, you can go to miles per hour or kilometers per hour. You can show distance as nautical miles for sailors or miles or whatever else. So all the units are here. One of the options is that you have control over how many versions of a file the system will keep when you update a forecast. So in the first video, I downloaded the forecast for the Caribbean. In the previous video, I updated the forecast. So there's 2 versions of this file. If I do this 2 more times, then I'll have a 3rd version and then a 4th version. And by default, the system will keep 3 versions of a file around. If you want more, you can choose how many versions you want to keep, including all of them. So you can make deletion of files your own responsibility or use these automatic methods. So by default, we have 3. In the weather files area, I started talking about this and I stopped, there's 2 versions of this Caribbean file. So you may have made plans based on the forecast from yesterday. So based on this forecast, you made a plan to make some travel or do something. And then you get up in the morning and you update the forecast and things have changed and now your plans have gone awry. The easy way to swap between files is to use this top left-hand button in the radial menu. And again, if you use the flick gesture up to the left, you can swap between 2 files. The current file and the 2 most recently viewed files. So you can change to a forecast time and swap between file forecasts and see that this forecast hasn't changed that much. So yeah, that's swapping between 2 files. The other thing that's very useful is to swap between 2 visual styles. So this file contains rain, wind, and sea level pressure. And you can swap between the different ways of seeing that by opening up this editor and then choosing which combination you want to look at. So when you're studying rain, this is a very simple, clean presentation of rain. You're seeing sea level pressure and the rain forecast. The more blue it is, the more rain there is, which is useful for studying rain, but you also want to study wind often as well. And for wind, I prefer this wind rain pressure setting. So it's useful to be able to scroll to a point in the forecast and then quickly switch between 2 different combinations. And the way you do that is with this top right corner, top right button. So if you choose that button, it'll swap between the 2 most recent style sets. And again, you can just hold down and flick to the right very quickly to swap between these 2. So yeah, that's useful too when you are studying the weather and you quickly want to swap between the different combinations. That's useful. So yeah, thanks for your patience. There's more videos coming. If you have an idea of what you want to see in the future, please leave me a comment. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon.